Hey everyone, my name is Jessica Reed, and I'm so excited today to be talking to you at your conference about inclusion tech hacks. So let's get started. All right, so we're going to do this a little differently. I am going to be presenting. You're going to hear me. Sometimes I'll pop my head in, but I'm excited to talk to you today, okay? All right, so my name is Jessica Reed. I am a middle school special education teacher who teaches ELA resource and inclusion. I'm a Google for Education trainer, and I'm also a Google innovator from the New York City cohort. I'll tell you, if you ever get to do any type of professional development or an opportunity to really push yourself as an educator, Google Innovator is where it's at. It's probably the best thing that I've ever gotten to do as a teacher. And I will also tell you that I teach in Georgia, so if you hear a little bit of a Southern accent, that's why. I teach in Georgia, but I live in Alabama. So I kind of drive over the mountain, and I teach Eastern, but I live Central. So my days are never boring, never dull, but it always makes for a fun school day. All right. So we're going to be talking about a few different things. We're going to be talking about what's inclusion, what's collaboration, how to really engage in collaboration between remote, hybrid, and in-person learning, depending on whatever you may be doing, and then what resources are out there and how to use them. All right, let's review a few things before we get to the really good stuff, which is going to be the apps and other ideas that you want to know about. All right, collaboration. What is that? Well, collaboration is more than just working together. It's more than just being team teachers. It's really where you get to work together as a team because, we're increasing in technology and project-based learning type activities. The kids need a great model to see how to work with one another to achieve a goal. And the biggest thing about this is if a student receives an accommodation, it doesn't matter any type. Collaboration can help them build relationships and understanding in the classroom, which is so vital for their life outside of the school building. If we can learn empathy, any of those kind of skills, it's going to help. And it's also important for some of our kids who are not special ed to know that there's different people in the world and how they should respond and react. And just because somebody has a label doesn't mean that they're different. They just may learn differently than you do. All right, inclusion and collaboration. Inclusion is going to be a classroom that has both general ed and special education students. It usually includes either 2 teachers or a teacher and a parapro or an aide. Then co-teaching really allows the students to have 2 teachers in the classroom, which is really cool because you get to share the work. It's one of those things kind of like, imagine if a student clicks better with you than they do the opposite and vice versa. And so then you really get to see what a kid can do because maybe of the rapport, the relationship that you have, there's so many neat things that you can do with it. Okay. This is my little soapbox, but I'll get off of it real quick. The key to any and all collaboration, especially if you've ever been married or any type of relationship or in a family, or if you just have a roommate, you know that communication is key. As a teacher, when someone's coming in your classroom and you have to work together, you really have to be willing to talk and learn from each other to get any type of positive interaction to happen. That may mean as a teacher, you have to rethink your thinking and your things. And as much as that can suck, sometimes I promise you the end goal is worth it. Kids that are in inclusion classrooms, they have IEPs. You may have a 504. An IEP is an individualized education plan where a group of people come together in support of a student who needs some type of additional support, whether it's through accommodations or support in the classroom, in their least restrictive environment, their LRE. And this really comes together to come up with ideas on how they can better learn and be more effective in the classroom. And while as a person who may not have gone through that yet, or maybe you've never sat in an IEP meeting or you've never written an IEP, those documents can be very scary, or maybe you've never had an IEP as a parent. I've written several IEPs. I've attended several IEP meetings. Until my own child had an IEP or had an evaluation for a speech, I didn't anticipate what I would think or what I would say. It's important for all type of communication to do. And my daughter just has an articulation problem, so she's 3, about to be 4, and so we're working on speech, and it's working because girl's sassy. But anyway, it's just really important that you understand an IEP is a legal document, and anything that's in there you have to do. It's as simple as that. All right, there are 5 different ways that you can do co-teaching in the classroom, and that is going to be through One Teach, One Support, parallel teaching, station teaching, alternative teaching, and team teaching. The 3 that you more likely see is going to be a One Teach, One Support, and that's going to be where you have one teacher teaching and you're going to have the other person walking around the classroom. Station teaching is very common in the elementary school where you maybe have 4 different stations set up and 2 teachers are working on different skills, or maybe you have one teacher introducing a new skill and the other teacher doing remediation or the aid. And then the other one is going to be team teaching, which is going to be where somebody walks in your classroom and you can't tell who's the gen ed, who's the special ed teacher. When you have a gen ed teacher who is supposed to be a content-based knowledge teacher, and you have a special ed teacher who is going to be the special ed knowledge person, it really opens up your opportunities in the classroom for teaching and learning for your kids. Okay, the biggest thing about co-teaching that you may not think about is I always think co-teaching is very much like a marriage. In the honeymoon stage or any type of relationship, honeymoon stage is all gravy, baby. You love everything. And then maybe by December in your classroom, you're like, I'm done. I'm divorcing you. Bye. Get out of my room. Unfortunately, there's going to be situations where sometimes you just don't get along with someone. It's going to surprise you. Co-teaching does. It takes a lot of patience and effort. It's work, just like marriage. Even if you want a divorce, please remember the kids. Just because you may not like Sally or Sally doesn't like you, you guys are there to teach those kids through different applications and apps, websites, all those different things. So please remember that as you're going through your classroom. All right, there are 6 ways to make it work. Just think about the rapport, both your different teaching styles, your strengths and weaknesses. IEPs, like I mentioned before, working together, or even just taking risk, thinking outside the box. I would also talk about having a united front and really figuring out who's going to do what in the classroom. Okay, but what about if you have a student who maybe is gifted or double exceptional, which is going to be like gifted and special ed? If you want to have students explore topics maybe on a deeper level rather than the initial surface knowledge, you're really getting them to use the Bloom's taxonomy, you know what I'm talking about, and getting them to really dig into information. And then, having them use any type of technology can be used to increase engagement if it's used meaningfully, not just like, here, go play a game. Okay, so Google Classroom, we use Google in my district, which is why I'm a big fan of everything for Google. But we are going to go ahead and get started and talking about some of the different applications. I will give you a forewarning. The majority of these I've actually tried myself or I've used them in my classroom, so I have personal experience with them. There may be 1 or 2 that I have recently just found out about, and I'm super pumped, and I want to share that resource with you. Once you get a copy of this actual presentation, all of the links are going to be hyperlinked, so you just would have to click on it to be able to go to that website, okay? All right, Google Classroom, this is a great place to serve as a hub because every teacher can be responsible for different activities. And then each teacher has access to the work that the students complete, which is really important if you're keeping data for your students. All right, Google, oh my. Like I talked about before, Google Classroom is a great place to serve as a hub for student work. There are several ways you can use it. You can think of it as like a Facebook for your classroom or whatnot. Just depends on your thoughts. Google Sites. One of the things that I love about collaboration is the student is getting to do any type of project that's really going to give them life skills outside the classroom. And sites is something that they can do for that because it is a training or learning that they can use to have a potential job skill. There are some other websites that they could try. You could either do Wix or Weebly. To me, Weebly is a little hard, but it could be a different option if you wanted them to try. The other thing about Google Sites is if you do it per your school, if you have a domain, then it's going to be great because you can't make it public. Only the people who are within your school are going to see it. So safety first. All right, Google Calendar. This is basically any type of calendar that you may have on your app or on your phone or your iPad, whatnot. There are some other options. You can have Cozy, Outlook, Calendly. Calendly is going to be great for any type of appointments that you may want to set. Having a Google Calendar is great for collaboration with your teachers or even with parents because maybe they can schedule appointments, you can do conferences, you can share all of your due dates and all of those good things. It's very important. Middle schoolers seem to magically lose everything. The good thing about Google Classroom or any type of platform, whether it's Canva or Schoology, any of those different things, Blackboard, if it has a calendar, to have that is going to help your kids learn new skills about keeping up with self-management, time management, which is important. All right, so now that we've talked a little bit about some Google apps, let's go a little more broad. So we're going to have Wakelet is really cool because Wakelet is going to be like Pinterest, but on steroids, a little bit. There are some other cool things that you can use it for. You can have students share it to create resources. I know Padlet, and we'll talk more about this in just a minute. I know Padlet may be a situation that's not great for your students. Maybe your district's been like, nope. So, all right, Wakelet is definitely an option. I love Wakelet. I have been riding the wave a little bit. I still need to work on it some. But I know with our particular cohort for Google Innovator, we had someone actually created a Wakelet of all of our different projects. And so it was cool because it was all in one place, which, as you know, is awesome. All right, so Screencastify, this is actually what I'm using. It's going to be Screencastify, so you can have different options. You can have where it's just going to be here, we just see the presentation. You get to see the person's face in the presentation, or you can just have someone maybe doing just a recording. What's really cool about this for collaboration is if you have two students working together, they can record. Maybe you have your students doing a Zoom and they screencast or they use Zoom to record their presentation back and forth, or maybe their conversation, and then they share the video with you. It's kind of endless to the different options that you can do. But there are some other options. If Screencastify is not your jam, it's cool. I get it. I will give you those. Screencastify has a free and a paid version. Like I'm using the paid version because this whole presentation is going to be about 30 minutes long. And so for Screencastify, you only get 5 minutes for the free version. There's a Chrome Recorder, Loom, Screencast-O-Matic, and WeVideo. WeVideo is more for like awesomeness with green screens and kind of stuff that you can actually go through different levels of learning, being certified for WeVideo that you need to try. Very, very cool. All right, Flipgrid. Flipgrid is going to be fun and easy to use. This is great for students who are ELL or even SPED because anytime they struggle with writing, so like if you read a book, this just happens to be right there, and we have a conversation with someone, and you could even use Flipgrid for professional development if you're an administrator. Talk about the book, pose a question, and then you can have the kids respond back to you. Well, the thing about special education students is a lot of times they can verbalize anything with you, but when they actually have to start writing it down, it like gets lost in translation from here to here. So if I can actually get data of them speaking and seeing it on their video, I feel secure that they know what they're doing, or I know that they mastered something. A lot of times a test is a test. I didn't do well in my SATs. I'm not too concerned about my kids' test scores. I'm more concerned whether or not they actually mastered a subject, because everybody's going to have a bad day, and some kids are going to have a bad day come test day. So if you learn nothing from me, please try Flipgrid. It's free. It's owned by Microsoft. It's very, very cool. All right, Nearpod and Pear Deck. These are two different types of options. They're both fun and engaging ways to present lessons in a class or self-paced work time. Nearpod and Pear Deck, pretty much just presentation ways. Nearpod has a pay version that includes virtual field trips, time to climb review games, and awesome collaborative boards. I will say that Pear Deck and Nearpod just both came out with co-teaching in their presentation, which is really cool. Nearpod and Pear Deck both have extensions in Google Slides that you can use. I really think it's up to whatever your school is comfortable with and what you're comfortable with. I personally am a Nearpod pioneer, so I love to use Nearpod, but once again, it's just up to you. Google Keep. This is one of the coolest things that I've seen because it reminds me of a refrigerator with different like Post-it notes. And basically, it's just a fun and easy way to keep things organized and simple for all involved. It can be used for brainstorming for your kids. There are some other ideas that you could use for Google Keep. Zoho Notebook, MindMeister, Padlet, OneNote for Microsoft. I personally use Google Keep with one of my students to kind of help keep him in track where he gets to keep an organization of his agenda via the Chromebook. And what's neat about it is all the teachers have access to it along his mom. So he still thinks he is self-managing his assignments, but we can help. Because he's only in 7th grade, and that's a skill that we want him to learn and mature and grow in. So, all right, are we done yet? No, of course not. No. All right, Google Slides. I wanted to share this with you because if you've never gotten to do a slide deck, it's really cool. You can have a share deck where students are required to 1 to 3 slides based on a topic. This is a great group participation, and then everyone present their slides to the class. Just like anything, having a Google slide deck is great, but it's a skill that you have to teach your kids. They're not automatically going to know how to make a really pretty slide. Even as a person who has been presenting for the last couple of years, my presentations, every time I present, seem to just get better because maybe I've changed things or I realize, ooh, that didn't work, that did. My favorite assignment I've given my kids is I love Edgar Allan Poe, come October. It's my favorite thing to study. And I usually have my kids from 6th grade to 8th grade. So by the time we hit 8th grade, we have really nailed Edgar Allan Poe. And we've talked about, how everybody in his family's died, how all the women in his life are dead, and he has no money, how he died, how he writes Gothic romanticism. It makes it the way it is. And so my kids will actually take the Telltale Heart, which we have beat into their heads, it seems like. And so as their final project, instead of a test, instead of an essay, I give them one of the verses of the poem and have them interpret it to what they thought Poe meant now in today's world. And then on the bottom where it says like presenter's notes, they have to explain to me how did Poe's life affect his writing. It's really cool because they get to change the font, do what all they want to make the slide pretty, but it is something that they enjoy, and I enjoy is looking at them and reading them. All right, Slides Mania, if you have never checked out this website, please do. This is actually a Slides Mania. She has got so many cool free slide template for PowerPoint and Google Slides. I mean, it's amazing. I don't know how she does it. There are interactive notebooks, agendas, and way more. So if you are looking for some cool collaborative activities, Slides Mania would definitely be, especially if you're a big Google Slides person. Another option is Slides Carnival. It's just really more who you're more comfortable with. Google Docs. 2 different options that you can use for Google Docs for collaboration is having the kids create essays, and then they are able to edit each other work by creating and having authentic information comments. This is something that you could even for math have the kids work on word problems in groups. Maybe they record themselves using Screencastify, and then you record back providing thoughts and you provide comments. This is something you have to teach your kids because if not, they'll get on the same document and it can just be bonkers. All right, here we go. Google Sheets. This is just one way you can have students organize and collaborate on many things. Can also be help in deciding activities for inclusion as well. One of my favorite things to do is I am our lead special ed teacher, and so I have a big Google Doc or Google Sheet just full of fun information, and the people who need it have it. Wham bam, thank you, ma'am. Here we go. It's very easy. It's all in one place. So if you are a team lead, I would definitely check into Google Sheets with all the tabs in the bottom. Google Forms, you can just get some awesome feedback from your students. Answer Garden is another version of being able to do with our lovely way to get just some answers or feedback from your kids. YouTube, the kids can collaborate with other people, maybe even talk to each other, and they can just watch anything. You can learn basically anything on YouTube for appreciative. So definitely check that out. All right, here's just some really fun ones that I like as a special ed teacher. Ed Puzzle, the kids can't skip past the questions. Canva, just create awesome projects. Google Jamboard, you don't have to have the Jamboard. You can do collaboration in a super fun way. There's on Twitter, there is the tech lady. Her name is Kim. Can't remember her last name. She has a great Jamboard. She does her own, the tech suite. It's on a show on YouTube, and she has a really cool wakelet full of really cool Google Jamboard ideas to do. She also has a book that is out with Alice Keeler about Google Classroom. So check that out. Twitch is just really neat for game playing and streaming, and maybe that's something that you could have a bond with your kids. Speech Therapy Ideas is a great resource for younger grades, especially if you have students with ITEC problems. And then this is just something to share with science teachers. Buffett.colorado.edu has really awesome science and math simulations. And this is something my kids actually did today, and I did it too, and it was super fun. This is called Bullet It. It is like Kahoot or Gym Kit, but it's way more interactive. There's so many different cool options, and from what I can see, it's free. Maybe there's a paid version as well. It was really cool for my middle schoolers, and I enjoyed it as a teacher, getting to play. So, and you used to make your own and do your own thing. All right. Some other ideas for you to have collaboration in your inclusion classroom. Have your kids create podcasts for each other, or even listen to podcasts and then do their responses, maybe a verbal response on Flipgrid. Having the kids use an app, you could use Glide app for this lesson. And then having students use social media appropriately, maybe Twitter, TikTok, Minecraft, blogs, and more Instagram. Really depends on your personal level of comfort with that, or your system's level of technology. TikTok, I just said, because that seems to be the most interactive form right now. It's just something that depends on how you feel. All right, there are some ways to avoid disasters. You need to make sure to color code on documents. Make sure to share one folder for collecting work. Use the revision history. Have both teachers and students use the comment feature and all thoughts and sheets for revision. And here are just some really cool more resources that if you have not checked out, you need to for some more collaboration ideas. Digital Textbook, Matt Miller, Cult of Pedagogy, Control Alt Achieve, Charver Academy, Tyler Charver, Accessibility for All by Nan Gilkinson. She's actually a good friend of mine. It is a Google slideshow that has got so many tips for accessible technology in your classroom. The queen herself, Shake Up Learning from Casey Bell. She is amazing. She has 3 different books out. You ever want to know anything Google, she is your lady to know. And she also has some really cool certification courses as well. Reset Edu, Jennifer LeBon. She is a teacher who has a YouTube show, and she's just, if you need to reset from teacher frustration, she is a good place to go to. And then Assembling Inclusion, Katie Neves. This is actually her Google Innovator Project. It's a website that's just full of really cool special ed ideas, micro courses, blogs, you name it. I think she just wanted a place where everything could be in one place for special education. This is my website, Sped Tech Teacher. Please reach out. Come and holler at me. My Twitter is Kentucky Girl in Alabama. My email is jessicareed996@gmail.com. I hope you learned something. I enjoy talking with you guys, and see you on the flip side.